Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of the Legends of Sport podcast, honoring and celebrating Kobe Bryant's enshrinement into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame as a member of the class of 2020. I'm Andy Bernstein, and as always, I'm thrilled to be here hosting this episode for all of you. Last year's Hall of Fame ceremony was postponed due to COVID and moved to May 15th of this year. It's an amazing class that includes Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Tamika Catchings, and Rudy Tomjanovich. We decided to discuss Kobe's iconic career with two veteran journalists from the Los Angeles Times who covered his entire 20-year career, just as I did for the Lakers in the NBA. Our guests today are Bill Plaschke and Brad Turner. This was a really fun and lively conversation that I think you all will enjoy. Together, we witnessed and discussed Kobe's maturation from an 18-year-old rookie that we all met in 1996 to a five-time champion, two-time Olympic gold medalist, an MVP, and now a Hall of Famer. Enjoy this very special edition of the Legends of Sport podcast, and as always, I'll see you on the backside. Well, welcome Bill Plaschke and Brad Turner from the LA Times to the Legends of Sport podcast. So
who's a legend? Wait a minute. Are you saying we're legends, Andy?
You guys are legends among legends.
We're legends in our own minds, maybe.
Yeah. About a little mind too. About a pea brain type mind here.
Pea brain, and we're legend.
I think we're all legends because we've just been around too long, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
So BT, you're a returning guest. I think this is like your third stint on the LOS podcast, and the last time we talked was after the bubble, right?
It was.
Did a recap.
That's some time ago. Yeah.
Right. And Bill, you're a newbie, so welcome, my friend.
Thank you. I'm honored and privileged, and happy to be with my friend BT and my friend Andy Bernstein. I'm ready to go.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
So, fellas, we planned this episode to coincide with Kobe Bryant's Hall of Fame enshrinement. Okay, as we know, but the audience might not know, the class of 2020 was supposed to have been enshrined like last September. Of course, we had something called a pandemic, so they delayed it, and it's going to be on May 15th. So this podcast will come out to coincide with that during the celebration of Kobe's enshrinement week. And it's a little joke between me and Kobe. I happened to get into the Hall of Fame before he did, which always stuck in his crop. So that's why I'm wearing the shirt.
Yeah, look at you. Pop that shirt. Pop that cotton, Andy. Pop that cotton.
There you go, Andy. There you go.
You go, Andy.
That's enough self-promotion. No, but it was kind of something funny that we did joke about. So this is an unbelievable class.
We didn't have that joke. Me and BT didn't have that same joke with Kobe.
No. We had some, but not that one.
Not that one.
There you go. So, guys, this is a really amazing class. Two of the enshrinees are going to be two guys that Kobe played his whole career against, Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett, right? Do you guys have any stories or anything about Kobe going against those two guys throughout his career? Anything come to mind?
Plaschke, the one that kind of comes to mind was when the Lakers were playing
the Timberwolves.
Well, no, when they were playing San Antonio to see who would get to the NBA Finals. Remember, San Antonio won that championship in 1999, and Phil called that the asterisk year because it was a short season. So everyone kept saying, especially our friend Rick Bucher, was that San Antonio was a better team. So when they finally met, I don't think they met each other in 2020, but maybe 2001, and they played in the Alamo Dome. And Kobe had these incredible games. I mean, just like these monster games. And there was one time someone missed a shot. He grabbed the offensive rebound between David Robinson and Tim Duncan and scored back on those guys. And I want to say he scored something like 45 that particular game in that series. Yeah. And we knew that was greatness there because we saw it in the series against the Pacers. But this was against San Antonio, the team that people thought the Lakers could not beat because they had Tim Duncan, they had David Robinson, and they had Brad Popovich, and they were this great team that missed out on back-to-back years of winning titles. But I just remember Kobe always doing work against San Antonio. And my pal and my buddy, I hope he's listening to this, Bruce Bowen. Oh, yeah. Getting those Kobe numbers, Bruce. You got it.
That's right. I had Bruce on the podcast and we were going over it. And I was telling Bruce that when Kobe and I were doing the Mamba Mentality book, he, we were talking about who were his defensive nemesises, and of course, Bruce was top of the list, Raja Bell, Tony Allen, Shane Batty, those guys, not Ruben Patterson, by the way.
Kobe stopper.
Yeah. And he put that in the book. But he said to me, he said, Andy, he said, you remember it was the 2001 conference finals and I went baseline on Bruce and I faked him left. I went right and dunked on his ass. He says, do you have that picture? Do you have that one? I'm like, yeah, maybe. But that's how exact he was. He remembered everything. It was incredible, right?
I just remember the Lakers, they played the Timberwolves. What year was that? That was...
Was that 2004 when they played?
It was in the conference finals.
Yes. That's right. That's right.
And Garnett we got him. He didn't want to talk. He didn't talk right after the game in the podium. I don't think they even had podiums back then, but he was walking out to the tunnel to his car and a bunch of us surrounding him. And he was cursing mad. And it's like, he's too good. Kobe's too good. They're just too good.
Yeah.
Just can't get that son of a bitch.
Oh.
Yeah, he was cursing and going crazy. And Garnett was famous for he cursed more than any other player on the court. I mean, Andy, you heard this probably more than anybody.
Yeah. I
mean, that was that year that the T-Wolves, that was in the conference finals, I think.
That was.
It was.
And they never had a chance. The Timberwolves never had a chance. Kobe was too good, and Garnett, it drove him crazy.
Yeah, he was an intense player, man. Garnett. I mean, he was intense all the time. I mean, I don't ever remember being around him when the guy wasn't wound up, but he was fun to watch for sure. Watch those guys go at it was just was a gift. It was amazing. So Bill, do you remember the first time that you met Kobe? Do you have any recollection? Was it his rookie?
Yeah, it was during a practice before the first game. Of course, everybody has to, everybody forgets Kobe's first season was the first story I ever wrote about Kobe, game story. It was about Shaq. Yeah. The whole season was about Shaq. 96 was Shaquille's team. Shaquille's in town.
Yeah.
So I met him. So he was just this punk kid. I mean, he was just, he was nice and everything, but he was just 17.
Yeah.
Take him serious. I didn't take him. We'd heard about the workout. We'd heard about Jerry West loving him and got to trade and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I just can't overstate how much when he came to town, this was Shaq's team, Shaq's town. Shaq came at the same time, but all of our energy and all of our media focus was on Shaquille.
Mm-hmm.
So Kobe he was like Taylor Horton Tucker, basically is now.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He was just a kind of a parlor trick, a novelty. It wasn't, and I'm sure you asked us later, but it wasn't until Utah series, the first year when people realized this guy really is something different or something unique or something bizarre or something worth watching. But I don't know, he was just, so I met him. Yeah, I met him and he was like, nice to meet you, Mr. Plaschke. And that was about it. There was nothing. Yeah. He was just a kid. I didn't know how long he'd be around.
Yeah, incredible. I equated him that year to being like a racehorse who just couldn't get in the gate. I mean, he's in the gate. They get him in the gate, and he just can't wait to get out of the gate. And Del Harris just wouldn't let him.
Just wouldn't play him.
Not play him. No, not at all.
Yeah. What about you, BT? What was your first meeting like?
The first time was really brief, but it was when he played in the summer league. When they played summer league at Cal State LA at the Pyramid.
Oh yeah,
and
Cal State Long Beach.
Cal State Long Beach, right?
Yeah.
So it was brief. I mean, he had a really good game, but you still didn't think much of it because, as Plaschke said, it was Shaq's town.
Mm-hmm.
But here was, I'm going to say July. He's in the summer league and he's doing all these incredible things, and the place was packed. And you wow, that's great. But you were still going, where's Shaq? I mean, Shaq's not going to play in the summer league. We knew that.
Yeah.
And when the game was over, the interview, we talked to him. He was a very nice young man. At that time, he was still 17 because he didn't turn 18, I don't think, until August. Is his birthday?
August 23rd.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the very first time, and it was brief, and it wasn't very long. It was with a bunch of other reporters, and I was just happy to be out of the office at the time to go to a summer league game.
Right.
And to see him play, I thought, you know what, there's something there.
Yeah.
But that was all I thought. There is something
there. You got to remember, Kobe lived with his parents.
Yes.
He lived at home with his parents.
Yeah.
He was a high school kid. I'm not covering. I don't really cover high school kids. we don't pay attention to high school kids. He was a high school kid, and that's how we looked at him.
It's funny when I met him, and I met him on my set, Media Day '96. I tell the story a lot, but I saw something in him. I was 20 years older than him. I was 38, he was 18, but I saw something in him like the first time, and then those first few weeks that reminded me of myself. Kind of chip on my shoulder. Wanted to prove everybody, maybe wrong, or just prove to myself. Don't take no for an answer. That kind of thing. And that was a confidence that he had. I mean, I watched a lot of footage of him in high school and listened, read some interviews. I mean, I don't think anybody had more confidence in this guy at that age of anybody I ever met in my life, right? Incredible.
But he believed in himself. Mm-hmm. He thought, I will say this, if I close my eyes, I would think I was talking to Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. And there were times where we first interviewed him, I kept thinking, is this MJ? He had every single nuance about MJ down.
Yeah, but I think we have to admit, I mean, I know you sensed something in him, but it wasn't until he started firing up the air balls against Utah that really people realized this kid does think he can do it all. This kid does have a chip on his shoulder. Yes. This kid won't, like you said, Andy, won't take no for an answer. Mm-hmm. Sitting courtside against Utah, that first playoff series, when he shot it, and of course, you guys remember how it is in Utah. It's incredible. The fans are nuts.
Deafening. Right on top.
We're sitting courtside. They're right on top of you, and they're screaming. And Kobe's shooting the air balls, and we're screaming in the press. Well, what's he doing? What's he doing? Get that kid out of there. And he puts it back in, and he shoots another air ball, and another air ball, and another air ball.
Yeah.
We're like, what's he doing?
Oh.
And I think it was then that I realized he's unapologetic, chip on his shoulder, not going to take no for an answer.
I watched that footage recently, and as they're walking off the court, you guys probably remember this. Shaq put his arm around him and said something to him. Do we know what he might have said to him at that moment? Did either of you find that out?
If you don't stop shooting, I'm going to kick your butt. Probably did, Andy. If we just face it, probably did.
It looked more like a big brother kind of thing.
We like to imagine that.
The story from Shaq is that he was encouraging him,
right,
that his day would come, that he had the Cuervos to take those shots, and don't worry about it. We'll get this right. You'll be fine. That's the story that Shaq tells.
You think Shaq was really saying that? What do you think he was really saying?
You know what? Back then, when they first came on board,
there wasn't jealousy.
There wasn't. They didn't become jealous of each other until they won their first championship,
and then Kobe got on billboards.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about that. All right, the whole Kobe Shaq dynamic. Can we just, the three of us were there. We were intimately kind of tuned into what was going on. I mean, and from both of your perspectives, was going on with those guys, or not going on?
Now, I'll start off by saying this, and excuse my language. That shit was real. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't care what Shaq says now. I don't care if he's smacking upside the head. They had issues. They bickered. They had problems with the other, and it was more on Kobe's part because Kobe was a workaholic. He lived and breathed basketball. Mm-hmm. Shaq, I'll play some basketball. I'll do a movie. I'll rap. I'll make a video. Let's have some fun. Mm-hmm. But to Kobe, there was no such thing as fun. Mm-hmm. Get your big ass in shape. Yeah. Well, I'll get in shape during the season when I get paid to get in shape. Work your butt out during the summer. And that was a difference in the two attitudes that they took. And that was sort of how they started drifting apart, because Shaquille thing was, when season starts, in this case, October, I'll be fine by December. Kobe, nah, man. Season's over. Let's get to work in the end of July. Yeah. Get to work in August. Get your game together. Lose some weight. Mm-hmm. Hit some rebounds. Do something. Why am I carrying a team? Shaq hated that.
Yeah, BT, I totally agree. That shit was real. And it makes me so mad. Shaquille, in one of his books, he wrote that we caused it. He actually mentioned Donde not by name, saying we caused it. He's mentioned BT by name before. we didn't cause anything. They didn't like each other. You had to pick sides. You walked in that locker room, and Andy, and you had to pick a side, and they saw who you went to first. Because this was before podiums, I believe. And after a regular game, you'd go to one or the other, and they'd see who you went to. Either you were a Shaq guy or a Kobe guy. There was no in between. There was nothing down the middle. Shaquille was jealous. Shaquille was 25 or 28 going on 18. Kobe was 17 going on 40. So Shaq was a big kid. Kobe was a young, old school hat and old soul. And he, like BT said, Shaq was jealous of Kobe for all the endorsements, all the attention. Kobe was jealous of Shaq for getting away with not working hard and not putting in the time. And it was, you had to pick a side and you had to be a guy. Now BT, I'm trying to recall who you were. I was a Shaq guy. I was a Shaq guy because he was funny. He was engaging. He was delightful. He embraced us. He loved the city. He was a human being. Kobe was this assassin robot. So I was a Shaq in the beginning. I was a Shaq guy.
So was I, Plasch, for all the reasons you just mentioned, because he was nice. He was the guy that would tell Jay and Adonde on New Year's Eve, "What are you guys doing New Year's Eve?" We'd say, "We don't know." He goes, "I'm having a party at my house. Come by, have a good time. I'm gonna have some good food." And we're like, "Really?" And so you go by Shaq's house for a New Year's Eve party because you knew it'd be safe. And you see the entire team there, except for one player. You did not see Kobe Bryant there. And I sort of understood that to be the case, but Shaq was just a guy that, even when they gave you the quotes, they were kind of funny. You know, the big cactus, whoever he happened to be that day, that week, whereas Kobe was serious about everything. And he took notes, he took mental notes. Whose side were you on? And it wasn't a matter of not wanting to be on Kobe's side, but it was hard to get through to that veneer that he had. He had walls up, and he only accepted certain people. Early on, I was not one of those that was accepted. So Shaq did. So Shaq was my guy. But I
once wrote that Shaq should be MVP. I wrote a big column, and he should be the MVP. And the next day, he hugged me and danced around the locker room with me, and nearly knocked Kobe over. And then Kobe's like, just looks ashen at the whole thing. Who are you? Who are you, Andy? Whose side you take?
Well, you know, it's so interesting because I met Shaq before he was drafted, right? And I came out to Leonard Armato's office and met Shaq, and you know, he was super nice. And then I ended up forging this great relationship with him where I would go to Orlando like twice a month. I shot almost all of his commercial stuff for Reebok back then, Pepsi. I was traveling with a good friend of mine, Christophe Del Relais. You remember Christophe Del Relais from Mondial Basket? And he would do like a game of the month and would always involve Shaquille somehow, you know, the game of the month. So I would go. So when Shaq came to LA, I already had this relationship with him. And, you know, you didn't have to take sides then, you know, in 96. I was able to kind of walk the line, quite honestly. But I must say that after Shaq left, and the acrimony that just led to him leaving and everything else, that it took me a little while to kind of work my way into Kobe's graces.
Kobe had a circle of trust. He would tell me,
right,
he's got a circle of trust. He'd say, "I got the circle of trust," and he'd draw a line outside his locker.
Yeah, right.
Like, "Bill, you're not in it right now."
And
I'm like, "What is this? Meet the Parkers?" I mean,
with a cone of silence. Remember? No, but it was never anything spoken. I just felt like I needed to be professional and not give him any reason to doubt me, you know, and he knew that I had a good relationship with Phil, of course, and with the organization. So it was, you know, it wasn't as difficult as it probably was for you guys, you know, and you guys have to report what you see. I don't necessarily have to write something that's negative or photograph something negative, right? So that's a help in my profession.
But you saw it, Andy. You saw the acrimony.
I did see it, but then, you know, fast forward to a few years ago, and NBA TV did that sort of, they met each other in Jeannie's office, and they filmed that. You guys probably saw it, and it was a beautiful moment. It was like, you know, these guys just got it all out. It was like an hour and a half therapy session. and they joked about it. They both had regrets about it. You know, I mean, we talk about it all the time. How many championships could these guys have won if they just didn't let their personalities get in the way, right?
But to your point, I don't think they ever got over it. I don't think, even when Shaquille spoke at Kobe's memorial service, he acknowledged that he hadn't spoken to him in 2 or 3 or since his retirement. So in 4 years, he hadn't spoken to him.
Well,
I just don't think
it's a shame.
I just don't think they ever got over it.
And you know, after everything that's happened and the tragedy of losing him so early, and being able to just say, you know, it's a cliche, but life is just too short for that stuff. It's just too short, you know. And I'm sure Shaq in his moments thinks about it, and I'm sure Phil thinks about it, and everybody else thinks about it. You know, how we kind of let this get away. So,
well, Shaq, what's interesting about you saying that, Andy? I was talking to Robert Ray one day, trying to track down the right number for Shaq again. And he sends me a number. He goes, "This is the number that we have a group chat text on." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, it was Shaq's idea after Kobe's memorial. So it's like Rick Fox, Fish, Robert Ory, Shaq. And I want to say it's just the 4 of them, because I said, well, what about Devin George? And Bob goes, he's too damn young. He don't know nothing. I said, still? He goes, still. No, okay, and Brian Shaw. So they, because of what you just said, because of Kobe's unfortunate death, they now probably send each other text messages to stay in contact with the other about their families, about what they're doing, because as you said, and as Plaschke said, man, life is so short and it goes so fast. Before you know it, you're old like us.
Do you remember the Shaquille? I'll never forget, it really hit home with me that this thing's never going to end. When Shaq won the championship with the Heat, he had the rap song in New York. And that video was just so juvenile, so
unnecessary. It was petty. It was childish. It was everything you would expect from Shaquille O'Neal.
Well, let's talk about then the post-Shaq Lakers and Kobe, right? So, you know, now Shaq is gone. He's got to carry the team on his back. He's got to earn his place in, I guess, history, you know, to win the championship in 2009. And then, of course, avenging the loss in 2008 against the Celtics in 2010, which he called his greatest championship. What did you guys see, you know, when he adopted the Mamba persona? You know, this is not the Kobe that we all met at 17, 18 years old. This is a different guy. So what were the big changes that you guys saw?
You know, I started to see some changes after they lost to Detroit, because now Phil Jackson's gone, Shaquille is gone, and it's a brand new team, a brand new coaching staff. And it's a man who wants to prove that I don't need Shaquille. I don't need Phil Jackson even. I am so great, I can carry the entire load myself. But he could not. That was not a very good team. Matter of fact, they were a horrible team. They missed the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, Phil Jackson is going to come back. Kobe was not very happy about that, because Phil had written a book. And in that book, he took his shots at Kobe Bryant, as you know, you would expect Phil Jackson to do. But when Phil did come back, they were able to, it took them a while, but they were able to forge a relationship, starting with Phil apologizing. And he was saying that some things he wrote, he wished he hadn't written. And I think he even made some changes to another version of the book. And so once the two of them sort of got over their tormented relationship, because Phil was kind of a Shaq guy too. But once they got by that, then I think you start to see Kobe, at least I thought, one that was more willing to channel his energy into the right direction. And he could still be an SOB to deal with, but he was trying to prove a point. And he couldn't prove that point, as it turns out, without Phil Jackson helping to guide him along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw Kobe become even more the Kobe that people didn't really like or embrace. Because remember, he asked for a trade. He asked in the parking lot of a grocery store in Newport Beach. He's ripping Andrew Bynum and saying he'd rather play. His quote was, "I'd rather play on Pluto than play for the Lakers." To this day, my fantasy basketball team is called Pluto AC in honor of that. In honor of that, he said he wanted to play on Pluto. He was so. I mean, I believe I wrote, "Get him out of here. If he doesn't want to be here, get him out of here."
Yeah,
I think he had to go through that. He had to make it. He was trying to, but it turns out he was right and I was wrong. He was trying to force Laker management's hand into making the team a better team. They got Pau Gasol, and everything changed. So I think once he made that stand, they got him the sidekick. Then he started to become more of an empowering, embracing leader. I think that's what got us when he realized, okay, I've got the players now. I can really be a leader. But those were dark years for Kobe from Shaq, between Shaq and Gasol. He tried to do it himself, couldn't do it himself, and he learned he couldn't do it himself. So he made a big stink about it. He got what he wanted, and the Laker fans got what they wanted.
If we fast forward to his final game, right? Magic Johnson called Kobe Bryant the greatest Laker ever. Okay, now how do we feel about that?
Man, that's a mouthful.
Yeah,
and
I say no. I say Magic's the greatest Laker ever, because being a Laker is about more than being a basketball player. It's about being part of the community, part of the landscape, contributing in other ways. Magic's done so much for the fight against AIDS, so much for inner city black-owned businesses, so much for the community. Magic's the greatest Laker. There's no question about it.
But there was so much that Kobe did, and you guys know this, but that wasn't publicized. Make-A-Wish, every game he did a Make-A-Wish for years, and the stuff he did in the community. And I hear you, Bill. I mean, the Magic, I think, is a lot more visible for sure. But if we're talking about pure talent, like what the athlete meant to the organization, do you guys feel Kobe was the greatest?
I'm going to probably still stick with Plaschke and say,
I'm
Magic. Because look what he did as, 19, 20 years old, game 6
that was
at Philadelphia, no Kareem. For all the great things Kobe Bryant did, and he did some great things, what Magic did on that night to give the Lakers a championship for the first time since 1970? And it hadn't been that long since Jerry West and those guys beat the Knicks, 70, 71, whatever that year was. Man, that was a long time. And he jumped center like he belonged there. He made hook shots like he was Kareem. I mean, he was throwing assists. I think he did have a triple-double that night. I mean, he was amazing. So almost from that game alone, you almost want to say that, it's Magic. It's close, but it's
all right. I respect it. Look.
All right. You got Magic and Kobe. Who are the other three? Jeannie Buss recently was asked about who the most impactful Lakers were.
I think she had LeBron, I think.
Which is a big no, because he hasn't been long enough.
She had Kareem.
And Phil, Now, for me, it would be obviously Magic, Kobe, and look, Jerry West. Not only for what he did as a player, but how he put the team in place so that Kobe and Shaq could win championships.
Absolutely,
he put a team in place so that Magic could win his 5 titles. I mean, he is one of the best masterminds in any professional sports to me. Because of all the stuff that he's done. So then I would say, it's Jerry, then it's Kareem. And I don't want to kind of put him in that order, but then Kareem would be in my top 5. And then the 5th top, oh man,
I'll tell you about that. BT and you and I have the same top 4 we do. My 5th is.
Who's your 5th?
Chick Hearn. I'm serious. You laugh, Andy. You laugh.
I don't laugh because
he brought the Lakers. Everybody talks about Vin Scully.
People
forget about Chick Hearn and the effect he had on this organization, on this city.
That's right. That's right. And he was voted at one point. He was voted the most popular Laker of all time. Guy never played a minute. That's crazy, right? Yeah.
It's, you say that, I was going to have my battle between James Worthy and Elgin Baylor.
Yeah.
But I didn't think.
Wish I had seen Elgin play.
The only thing with Elgin is 9 games into the season, he quit.
Yes.
He retired. He didn't get a championship. And then he also led the Clippers for 25 years.
Yeah, well.
That's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other podcast. So, guys, let's talk about that final game, okay? I mean, honestly, I was at Kirk Gibson's home run. I was at the Kings when they won the Stanley Cup. I've been to some big events, as you guys have in LA. But the electricity in that building, right, was just beyond belief. I had spent the whole day with him leading up to, coming to Staples. And Bill, I think you said in your post game, I watched it yesterday, you said that the final game was supposed to be a gift from the fans to Kobe, but it turned out that it was a gift from Kobe to the fans, right?
Send that to the Pulitzer Committee.
That was great.
Hey, that's a great line, Plasch.
Right, that's
great. Yes.
It was
that on a t-shirt.
We all got together thinking we were going to thank him.
Right.
He was going to play, let's face it, we thought he was going to play 25 minutes, score 20. We're lucky to score 20 points. He was the worst shooter in the NBA that year. He was the worst statistically defender in the NBA that year. We just thought he would just get through it. We thought we were thanking him. Turns out he was thanking us.
What an amazing! And then you talked about cheering in the press box, which never happens.
He was screaming. Jay and Donde, we were screaming. I literally stood up in the fourth quarter and scored 23 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, yes,
screaming.
Yes,
yeah. And I think it was almost like we were screaming for this big part of our lives that was ending. This big part. We'd all been with him, like you said, Andy, for 20 years.
It's true.
Yeah. And we were screaming for the end. This roller coaster ride was really going down. It was going to end in a complete flourish. Our hands above our heads, our eyes popped out, our voices screaming. It was. I've never seen anything like it. I thought it was like an NBA Finals game.
Yeah, we're in Hollywood. I said this to him on my podcast. I said, we're in Hollywood, and I don't think anybody in Hollywood could have written that script. It was like unbelievable. I had never, maybe you guys had seen it because you've covered so many press conferences, but I had never seen an athlete get a standing ovation in a press conference. How about that spontaneous standing ovation at the end? It was unbelievable, right? I got chills and I was up there shooting it, and I'm getting chills, just, goosebumps shooting the thing. It was crazy.
I was really honored.
I was too. For me, that last game was the moment at the end when I was walking out the tunnel. As I wrote about it. And I heard him laughing with his family and having a good time. And I was going to walk up and out. And I thought, I just can't do that. I have to at least say hi. I turn around and walk back, and he goes, BT, get your black ass over here. And one of the beauties of it, Plaschke, was these two of us just talking. And who's there? Andrew Bernstein taking pictures. And our natural state of looking like, hey, man, whoa, Cole, how
and that picture ran in the LA Times.
That's
right. That was Andrew there, not knowing that he was there. And I kid you not, guys, the only thing we said about the game was, I was like, yo, Cole, you gave them mofos 60, man. 60, dude. And he didn't say, yeah, I did. He just stood there and kind of shook his head and smiled as if he didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And I didn't either. From that point on, it was more about, you dressed pretty good, BT. I said, come on, man, look at my competition. Yeah, I dressed pretty damn good against these reporters. And we talked about wine.
It was almost as if we knew the unknowable. It's almost as if the higher power, God, was saying this was going to be your last chance to really celebrate him, and everybody do it. And it was a perfect inning. The Mamba out. Microphone drop.
Yeah.
That was so perfect. He did the post-game press conference I remember there must have been half a dozen times during his career that I would yell at him, Kobe, finish getting dressed. You're late for the press conference. We're on deadline. Get your ass out of the locker room. Get down here.
Yeah.
He's focusing his tie. He showed up in his sweaty jersey for the press conference.
He had his uniform on.
He didn't want to take it off.
Well, they showered him in the locker room with water. It was like champagne, but it was water. They gave him, it was beautiful. It was an amazing night, unbelievable night. And you remember, BT, that after I took the pictures of you with Kobe, I gave you the camera and you took the one of me with him. Do you remember that?
I did. Yes.
It's actually in focus. Thank you very much.
So how about that?
Yeah, but you know what you missed? You missed a lot of years of BT kissing Kobe's butt. That'd have been a great picture.
Yeah, and also Plaschke on the other butt cheek. So there we go.
Well, guys, the last thing I want to ask is it's kind of a big question, but what's his legacy? I mean, what did he leave us with that we all need to kind of carry on now that we don't have him around?
If you take it in the totality of it, up until he died, I just remember someone that was always evolving, and he evolved into this incredible, to me, humanitarian, someone who supported women's sports, girls' sports, someone who was loved by young basketball players, whether they were girls, boys, men, women. I just keep thinking back to this person that grew in front of us from the time he was 17 years old up until he passed away. He just kept growing. And I just think that for someone like myself who wants to always grow, even at the age of 62, always be open-minded, being willing to learn something, that's the one thing that I take from him. And he was always willing to open up himself to becoming a better person. And I think if anyone's out there, all of us, we should be open to becoming better people.
Yeah, that's a great BT. That's really great. That's almost exactly what I was going to say. He was a portrait of you can change, you can evolve, even if you're even in the spotlight, even with everybody staring at you and everybody judging your every move, you can grow as a person. And he grew in front of us, and you can stumble, and it's okay. It's okay to admit you screwed up. It's okay to cry in front of the media. It's okay to have faith, your flaws, broadcast worldwide, as long as you learn from them. And he did, and he evolved, and he grew. And with human beings, such a shining example of in this environment. If he can do it in this environment, we can do it in our environment. If he can do it in Hollywood, if he can go from a cocky teenager to a troubled, embattled young man, to a guy who made some terrible mistakes, did some terrible things in his life, and yet grew out of it. And like, he said, when he died, think about it. He died taking his daughter to a basketball game, which he coached. That's what he died. He died as a dad. He died as a father. Yes. He died as a husband. And that was all things that we didn't see from him for so many years. Human beings are capable of changing, of evolving, and being better. And that's what he became, a better man. He became one of the best men I knew. Yes. And that's the lesson he taught us. And BT, you're right about that. Even no matter what age you are, you can always grow and always change and always do better. And he did better.
Well said by both of you. And I'm so happy we could connect and talk about his legacy and about his history and what he meant to the three of us, but to this city, to the game of basketball, as we celebrate his enshrinement into Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. So I can't thank you guys enough for taking the time and sharing all your thoughts with me. And I'll send you a postcard from Springfield.
Well, no, I think I might be there too, Andrew.
No kidding, BT.
I'll buy you some iced tea.
There you go.
Andrew, I love that you do the Legends of Sport podcast, because you are the legend of sport.
Yes.
You are the legend.
Yes.
You guys are great. And I love being part of the LA Times family too. And you
are our family, buddy. You know that.
Thank you. You guys are great. And we've been in the trenches together, and we got more to do. We got more to do. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. And I will see you. I'm sure I'll see you at the game sometime soon. So,
see you, brother.
Absolutely.
Right. Thanks a million. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode with my good friends and veteran LA Times journalists, Bill Plaschke, and Brad Turner. What a fun conversation it was for me, reminiscing and celebrating the Hall of Fame career of the great Kobe Bryant, the Mamba himself. All three of us were so fortunate to have covered his entire 20-year career in the Lakers' purple and gold. So many memories and great stories, as well as lessons from the legacy he left with all of us. Thanks also, as always, to my producer and researcher, Veronica Ahn. And thanks everyone for continuing to download and subscribe to our podcast. A reminder that you can find us on the LA Times app and online, as well as your favorite podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Please continue to keep following us on Instagram at Legends of Sport. Our Twitter is at Legends_of_Sport. Our blog is legendsofsport.blog. And our TikTok and YouTube channels, Legends of Sport. You can find my photography on Instagram at ADB Photo Inc. Thanks again, everyone. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another great guest and episode. Please continue to check our social media for the announcement. Until then, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe and stay well and wear your mask. Take care, everyone. See you in a couple of weeks.